Our university has been established in 1425, so it's one of the older ones in Europe. They say the oldest one in the lowlands. Sorry about the Netherlands about that. And we have the task of implementing and monitoring this package number 5. So let me introduce the key members. Myself, I'm a soil and water modeler. I work a lot in development cooperation, so stakeholder analysis is not new to me. In things like irrigation and drainage. Then Jean Pouzin will be coming tomorrow, but he has to lecture today. It's a geography course with a lot of expertise in soil and soil erosion modeling. And Damian Dils, who is at the moment in Tanzania, so he's not able to make it. He's a soil scientist for fertility and soil physics. And of course, we have some people which we still have to recruit for this. We have been doing a little bit of brainstorming already. One of the big tasks, I think, is how will we combine the trials, the long-term trials, which are already a valuable asset, more than a short-term trial of 2 years, in all honesty. How will we combine them? That will be a real task. So we'll, of course, do the short-term trials, which is very important, actually, also to get to compare the data also. But the long-term trials is really where we have a tremendous thing. If we really speak about sustainability, that's the one we really need. Then, of course, that has been introduced. I don't have to repeat those things. 2, 3, and 4, our predecessors. What we have to do is, of course, we have some issues. Let me be very practical. I mean, maybe I'm a down-to-earth. That's exactly what you need, a down-to-earth in soil science. Down-to-earth soil scientist. So let me be very practical. We listed up a few things we should already think about how to get them together. First of all, climate data. Long-term climate data near to our study sites. This should be available. Whereby we think of at least we can calculate what we call the ET0 calculation, so the meteorological data suitable for that. We're not going in detail. Then a good characterization of the soil. Probably this is all done, but we have to get that together. What are our basic set of soil data? So that links up with the other package, but one important thing we feel is that we should really very quickly identify what we actually have already, what has been measured already. So that's very important, and there we can also make a kind of selection towards defining our set of comparable data. How do we compare the data? And of course there's some more data like input, fertilizer, output, yield, and so forth. So there are many data we have to think of, and we should already try to list them up for the study sites, the 16 as we have, as quickly as possible. And that will be useful also then for the package doing the reviews and so forth, and ultimately for us. So there are many articles on soil quality. So when you look up, you get 10,000 of articles. The interesting thing is they're mainly from the 90s. So I think we had a lot of interest, and that went down a bit, and we're back to it. That's a good point, I think. So we should, one of the things which often is considered by many people as a key thing is the organic matter. So that's an important indicator for soil quality. So there we should clearly have an idea about our sampling strategy. So how deep will we measure? Do we use a mass-based or a volume-based, which is not an important if you have compaction, for instance. What type of laboratory methods will we use? So this, I think we need an inventory, what has been done with the study sites. Then we want to have some progress in science, so we want to pay some attention to the degradation of the organic matter and to the building up. What really do we have to look at? Maybe some of the variables are missing in our current measurements. Then quite often people say manure and compost are the way to improve. So this needs to be characterized. We should think about that. Manure and manure is two things. Compost can be very different. So this is an important input. In fact, in Africa, I'm more in development cooperation, not so much in Africa nowadays, but it's clear that soil fertility is linked to manure. So and that's not our focus, but I strongly believe that mixed farming is the whole for the whole world the best way forward, and not necessarily cutting out all the animals and saying, oh, if you know, purely vegetarian, everything is solved. It's a bit controversial, but that's not the focus of our talk, you know, and of our project. Then, in terms of soil conservation, sustainability, erosion, and so forth, so we need to characterize very well the soil physical characteristics. These are classical things. How will we measure that in a unified way? Stability of the soil is not very important, because the farmer starts the season and maybe the soil gets compacted during the season and so forth. So how do we characterize that? Do we measure some, during the 2 years, 3 years of experiments, the filtration capacity over time, for instance, and things like that? What is the erodibility? All those type of things, we should clearly think about it and also reflect on what we have done with our long-term trials. I think that's a very important message. Chemical composition. I heard this morning the minimum set of measurements. That's a classical one if you look at literature, but that's a bit dangerous. I think the minimum should be at least what is useful. So it should not be the common denominator, which is the weakest of all, but it should be really. Maybe we have to think about a kind of ring test, whereby we take samples in all the sites and bring them in the same lab and compare and see what happens. So there are quite a few issues in measurement here. Then storing the data is also part of our task, but this was tackled this morning also. So the data management plan. So one of the issues is the choice of the cloud system. By coincidence, I'm a bit involved in development cooperation where this type of thing at university level in Ecuador and Peru and so forth is set up. So what do you choose as cloud? So Leuven University has choice box.com. For sure, Dropbox is not good enough for our purpose. That's very clear to me. We need a unified database, and then that's not necessarily our task. I'm already cutting the grass for the next one. Is we want to do some modeling and analysis with the data. So we should make sure that this all is suitable for doing it. So it's a big agenda, I think. And the question, long-term versus short-term, how do we really integrate and how do we come together to conclusions and results? So, final comment, I think one of the important things I feel very strongly about is that we have a number of study sites, 16 in total. I know the one of the close of our neighbors of the Belgian Soil Physiological Service well, so there's 20 years of measurement. So it's very important, those are also stakeholders in that respect, that they really can advise us about their experiences and give us some good idea how we get there. Okay, sorry for this short talk, but I hope I get some practical things here and we can all work together nicely. Thank you very much.